This is Heavy Metal with Jeff Olson. Here's an interview with Arthur Brown. The new Crazy World of Arthur Brown is coming to the UK this March. Hello, is this Arthur Brown?
Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah.
Well, good morning. This is Jeff Olson calling from the States.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. For an interview. Yeah.
I'm having coffee with the god of Hellfire. The Crazy World of Arthur Brown. 45 years of fire is coming up. We want to direct everybody to, get people to your show March 8th through the 12th throughout England and Ireland. And direct everybody to your website at arthur-brown.com. Arthur, my first question is, did you partake in some fountain of youth or something? Your longevity there is incredible.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised myself. It just keeps going on. And, my father was an athletic sort. He was a rugby captain, cricket captain, besides being a jazz pianist and a car inventor. But he was running around when he was 82, so that there's something in the genes. But I also attribute a lot of it to, meditation and I have kind of a daily physical program that I've been doing for years.
Great. How about diet then, Arthur? What do you like to eat and drink? Any vices?
Well, let me tell you, for instance, my breakfast would be oats with ghee, that's clarified butter, with honey, with an ancient Incan root that I take, and and a good bit of salt in there, like the Scottish like it, and then there'll be a food-based multivitamin. That's a breakfast. Very good. Quite often I'll have beetroot juice. And then for the evening, I'm not a vegetarian. I was for a few years. But I'll have, chicken with rice and vegetables. And then I get sort of treated in different countries to, the local birds and fowls and beasts, buffaloes and things, and all kinds of animals that, that was very nice.
There's so many branches of discussion, even just from the clarified butter. Do you do that yourself?
Yes.
In the oven with the butter, separate it.
Yeah, and take all the milk products out of it and just leave the fat. And it's a lesser known thing that in the Ayurvedic system, as you get older, your organs dry out. But there's one or two things, and one of them is ghee, which reverses that. So
I will start on the ghee diet very soon. That's going to happen. Well, on that, let's have some fun. If I jump around, Arthur, sorry, just the way I'm waking up here, I may go past, present, future, all over the place.
Okay.
I heard in another interview about freeform jazz might be the sole reason that you chose music over your philosophy or law and rhetoric. What band would that be? Was that like a Coltrane when we're talking clarified butter, Ohm, and that kind of freeform jazz?
Well, it is true that I'm did listen to, you know, Coltrane and Coleman and all of those people. But actually, the occasion when that kind of revelation happened to me was when I was listening to a traditional jazz band, and it was when they went into their Freeform improvisation section. It was an open-air concert in London, and it was a band, I think it was Ken Collier. He was a guy who had gone out to the Middle East and explored and done what the hippies did later. And I'd left my everyday consciousness in my body, and I experienced a complete freedom. And so when I came back, so to speak, into all of that, I thought, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll do music.
Back in the golden days of AM radio, one of my favorite times, I think, we had shows like Dr. Demento, concert shows like King Biscuit Flower Hour. Did you ever guest on any of these shows?
Well, obviously for me, it started around 67, 68. I don't have any recollection of specifically playing on any of those. I did do something like one or two of the TV shows, and there was like, it wasn't Sullivan, it was another of the big ones.
American Bandstand? Dick Clark?
I think it was the Dick Clark show, and that was quite amazing. And also, by the 69, the Tom Jones show. It's brilliant. Yeah, but, I mean, you know, it was a very strange thing because that was the channel of, because Tom would just have people on he thought, and his panel thought were, you know, worth putting on. And so there were very strange people that got on to a show that was being played to a very middle-class audience. And young kids were watching it, and suddenly out comes the God of Hellfire. The Who, for instance, refused to go on it. They said, oh, too middle of the road. But we went on it, and I've had people come up to me and say, I was only 6 when I was watching Tom Jones' show, which was a very safe show. And he said, then you can, oh.
Levity, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you know, in England at the time, he was regarded as someone who, you know, if you listen to his very early stuff, there's one documentary where he's singing up at the club with the Beatles, and he does a version of an old rock song called Chills and Fever. And as a rock singer, he's just phenomenal. You know, really one of the few English people that could sing in a way that was meaningful. And, you know, that was, he didn't sort of, he was already up there and going along, and he didn't really so much buy into or get involved with the underground. But he did come down and see us at the UFO Club, so he was aware of all that, but his career trajectory, he was more interested in, you know, but the same as Engelbert, middle of the road, etc. And only later, right now, he's come back into a different place where he's doing stuff that's not at all middle of the road. Yeah.
That's incredible. He must be on the. He must be having the clarified butter as well, then, Arthur.
Well, I don't know. I did read an interview where he said, "Oh, you know, when you get to 65 or whatever it was, you can't get it up anymore." So I've given up on nightstands.
Polydor put out, through you guys all together, with a record called Underground. And it's got Julie Driscoll and Brian Auger and the Trinity. and then The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, Cream, Jimi Hendrix, Velvet Underground, and the Mothers. Did that turn into a tour or something? Like, because there's stories out there about you coming down on fire on stage with Jimi Hendrix or something. I don't know. Any stories there?
Yeah, we did a lot of festivals with all those big names, and we would sort of meet up, you know, maybe Miami or wherever it was, and there'd be, you know, so 4 or 5 of those people, or maybe 3 on any given festival, and then there were, you know, the Doors and the Jefferson Airplane and all the other big bands too. So you got to know all of those people over a period of a couple of years. I think we played with all those top bands, and there was a camaraderie together. We didn't, you know, have just 5 bands that did a tour, but we did have a kind of loose community, and yeah, and then Hendrix and I were in the process of forming a band. We used to like jamming together, and particularly in New York, in Steve Paul's club, The Scene, and there were some wonderful evenings there, just no form whatsoever, whatever came out. And you know, he liked to play bass, and he didn't like to sing, really. He was much happier playing guitar or bass.
Let's go this way. This might be an odd question, but Maurice Ravel was asked in an interview about Bolero, and he responded with, I quote, "I wish this wasn't my most popular work." Fire. Is Fire your most popular song, and do you feel Ravel's mood at times?
Well, it's certainly the most enduring song. It's the one that had all the, you know, commercial, big industrial backing involved with management agencies, etc., publicists, which I later sort of kind of turned away from. But it had kind of a mood of its time. There was the Paris riots going on in France. It echoed a chord. There was the experimentation with classical music, with African rhythms. That's all in there, you know, and electronics too. So it brought together a lot of the musical trends at the time, and of course, part of its success was the visual presentation, and the video was probably the first one of the art where the artist decided they were not only a musician but a visual artist, you know, with makeup and dance and capes and everything being a bit of a theatrical presentation.
That's enjoyable. I find maybe this time period, you in your music, with who you're collaborating with, modern orchestral. You know, we would have all kinds of interesting music with John Cage, or, you know, modern music fests and that sort. And here it is leading it in what you love, jazz, blues, rock, you know, definitely. You laid an egg there.
Yeah, well, it was a time when, you know, people were just, as a young person, that's what was around, and you were absorbing it. And there was, like, you know, programs on the radio from the, there'd been programs when I was, you know, teenager from war zones and things, and there was music from different cultures. There was people like Alexis Korner going out into America with Alan Lomax and putting out the blues. There was the modern jazz, you know, Mingus and all of those people. There was trad jazz, there was folk music, jug music, classical music is, still very important. I'm just sitting here with a gentleman called Semputu from Rwanda, who's a very famous musician from his culture. So we've been having a very nice conversation indeed. He's a very interesting gentleman. You should just get a couple of words from him. He's a hero in Rwanda, and he's one of the leading musicians who's won many awards, and also is part of the movement that is teaching people how to forgive over there. So have a quick word with Semputu.
Semputu, that's great.
Hello?
Semputu, how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
This is wonderful to talk to you.
Oh, thank you.
I like to ask a question to conclude in interviews. We're right in the middle with Arthur's, but the Semputu, what would you like to say right now to the entire world out there that would be listening on the internet, and this will be capsuled in time?
Yeah, what I would like to say to the world is just, the world now is sick because of wars, because of revenge, because of what's happening. And I would like to tell the world that they should know about the power of forgiveness. Because I'm Rwandan, and now Rwanda is healed because people are forgiving others. It's like we live in the world where the culture of revenge is killing the world, and they don't know about the culture of forgiveness. Like me in Rwanda, I forgave the man who killed my parents because we were going to have a cycle of violences, cycle of revenge. Then people should know that forgiveness is for you, not for the offender. We need to learn about this power, the power of forgiveness, because that's the best way to stop any future genocide, any future war, or any future violence.
That's beautiful, Semputu. I own that. I want that in my heart, and that is most beautiful thing. That's very beautiful.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Musically, what are you doing in music with that power? Songs, instrumental, visual, dance?
Yeah, it's a fusion of Rwandan music, which is very unique music, then a mix with modern to make it a good style, and it's very good when you play acoustic guitar, then you play another instrument, traditional instrument from Rwanda. It brings a new thing, and I played the unique music from Rwanda, and we have traditional instruments, we have beautiful drums. Then when you mix with acoustic guitar and you play with other musicians here who does modern, then it creates something very new, and the world needs also something new. Not they have been listening to the same thing. Then when you mix with African music, it's good.
That's great. Great. I can't wait to tap in and hear that. And we will definitely link this interview to you very deeply. And
very good.
This is wonderful to talk with you.
Yeah, me too. Oh, this is. I'm surprised I came to see my friend now. Now I'm talking to you. Yes. Okay, thank you so much. Let me give it to you again. Thank you.
Hello.
Arthur, that was beautiful. That was just great. And it's funny because I'm sitting here talking about the past, and now I realize, you know what? We need to talk about the future right now.
There you go. Yeah. See, you never know who you'll be sitting with in a cafe in Brighton.
Right, having coffee. Arthur Brown and Semputu. How did you write music with Vincent Crane? Did you guys he played some cool chords on the L100 and then cranked the Leslie up and I like that harmony, I hate that harmony, more melody here. How did that process work?
That was kind of like it. I mean, Vincent was classically trained and could conduct orchestras and things. And he was also heavily into jazz and boogie-woogie and, so he covered quite a lot of fields there. And so, but he had not really explored, he had something called the word engine, which was kind of a poetry and jazz thing. But when we came together, I said, well, no, I don't like that. Let's have an aggressive chord here. And he would play maybe 30 or 40 chords. And then I'd say, no, that's the one, there, that one. So then he would play that, and then we'd go along a bit, and he'd suggest a bit, and I thought, oh, that's pretty good. So we'd go to the next bit. And then he, of course, would also listen a lot to Dracian, the drummer's rhythmic patterns, because Dracian had a complete set of the history of African music from the Library of Congress, and Dracian later became a superb tabla player. But at that time, he was playing a lot of African rhythms and had a lot of modern jazz and avant-garde and electronic influence. And that, so if you listen to some of Vincent's stuff, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, that was from Dracian. That's the drumming, the rhythms, and some of the playing with Vincent heavily influenced, therefore, by kind of African music. And of course, Vincent put all of his own knowledge in there, which, it was an interesting combination. I liked some folk music, and Vincent quite liked that as well. And I like R&B and gospel and Indian stuff, and Dracian liked the African stuff and avant-garde, Stockhausen, electronic, and so all of that went into the mix when chords were coming out. Yeah, it was when it was a structure of a song, it was me and Vincent, and when it was the rest of it, it was Dracian. For instance, there's another song, I Got Money, on the Crazy World album. It's James Brown's song. But that was Dracian doing his Afro stuff. And, I thought it was just as much a part of the creation as anything else.
See, incredible amounts of musicology then. It's the study of world music all over, not restrained or common practice here. This makes sense.
Yeah, I suppose, it was a time when all of those things were becoming available to the public. And, Dracian, for instance, the drummer, was probably the first person I've ever known who chose to have one of those little, in those days, it was sort of the equivalent of the iPod, but he was the only person I knew at that time who went everywhere with his earphones in, like they do now. But that was 60, 67, 66 even, before anybody else was doing all that. That's what Dracian did all day.
Cassette. Yeah. Was it a cassette?
No. Well, it was a small thing. It might have been one of the portable cassettes. And, of course, he also had a tiny radio that he would use on if he was, on a mainline train or in the car or something. Yeah, and then, there was all kinds of, flamenco was, people had started going over for their vacations in Spain, and all of that music came down. And we started to get the real flamenco, the gypsy stuff. Manito Del Plata's cousin Manolo, who was the one who did the pure flamenco in the south of Spain and France. And, there were all kinds of people.
That would change melody and harmony then, with flamenco coming in to maybe your whole sphere. You're going to have those scales that are like altered minor scales, interesting seconds, and that's great to hear.
Well, and actually that brings us to the other point you were raising with working with Z, because he was a phenomenal. He still is a phenomenal musician. I played with him. Just went over to Texas for my early visit, and he, as a musician, for instance, we did a concert in Spain, and then after the concert, some of the fans came back in the dressing room, and everybody starts singing, Z's playing, and he just looked at me and he said, "Right, so you've got all these local people here, and they're getting me to play the stuff I can play. You watch." And he said, in about 5 minutes, they'll be singing me their stuff. So, lo and behold, a few minutes later, they're standing. Some of them were standing on the table doing their local stuff, and he said, "Right." He said, "Now, what I'm doing, Arthur," said, I can hear through the voices their local scales, and I'm learning their local scales." And he went around every culture that I came across. He learned their scales, he learned their tunes. He's like a walking compendium of different musical styles. It's just amazing. He loves it. And with Z, he's a different kettle of fish. He's one of these people who's got kind of a complete musical vision. So the way I work with people like that is I let them be in control. I say, "Okay, let's write a song about this." And sometimes I'll say, "Well, this tune I know is in the ballpark. What do you think? Where do we go from there?" And with Z, he's got such a breadth of knowledge of music. He can come straight into any area and create something new. It's just wonderfully stretching in the creative way.
Then would you then have just piles of verse, or would you listen to that and be inspired and then create lyrics and rhythm yourself with your voice and melody with yourself there?
Well, it depends. Sometimes I would take an existing melody by someone else that I really always wanted to sing, but I didn't particularly like the words. And then say we did one there on the spot, really, called The Sea of Vodka, which is a melody. The melody was from that, those were the days, my friends.
I thought they'd never run.
That's right. Which actually was an old gypsy song that they changed the words to. So I thought, well, they changed it. I'm going to change them the way I want to change. So I did it about a drunken Russian guy who falls foul of the mafia. And that sort of came out because I was with Z, who's Russian. And that just came out almost totally just like that. But he added one line to that, which was very telling, which was, I said, we'll never die till Moscow sings the blues. And he said, no, let's have we'll never die of capitalistic blues. So I said, oh, that's very good. So I added that in. And then I'll add, so it was kind of that way. And then other times he'd just have a riff and I'd come up with some words and a melody. Sometimes he'd have a melody and I'd put some words to it. It worked all kinds of ways. Or sometimes, there was just a poem and it ended up being spoken.
That's really great. That's great. We were just talking about forgiveness.
Yeah.
Are you still applying healing songs in your new musical ideals? And maybe let's talk about new music that you're thinking about, new things that you're dreaming about and want to make a reality with that healing application maybe, and what we just talked about.
Well, as far as I don't do professional healing song things. It all comes just on the moment, really. And sometimes there'll be a moment when, somebody needs to be sung to, and I'll sing. The thing that we kind of discussed as a result of your phone call was that I said, okay, well, I can see that there's this whole thing of forgiving that is culturally, you have to think of reasons and rationales and discuss it and talk about it. But there's also the level where it hit you that is deeper than that, which is the level of basic trauma. And that one is one that you can't just suddenly see the logical light of it. It's much deeper than that, and so that if you manage to find a way to deal with that in yourself, then you found something that's pretty universal. Because you're not dealing with the particular kind of thing that happened to you, or the reasons why all of this did and shouldn't happen. No, you're dealing with the basic fact of your integrity as a human being having been penetrated or affected or even damaged by something, and it doesn't really matter what it is. Now, because healing from music goes in sort of quicker and deeper than that offered by words and by advice and even by imagery, although imagery works parallel with it. There's a chance to get to these deeper levels of trauma with sound and music, and that's something that I'm very interested in, and I'm kind of interested in it in terms of just the normal kind of concept, as opposed to having a specific, a clinic or a thing of discussion or a particular healing thing. You're just going to a concert, and to me, if the artist is kind of open in their heart, then it can heal on that very basic level that a trauma exists, without any reference to it at all, without talking about anything to do with the problem or healing. and it has to do with the integrity and the wholeness of the energy that comes out of the music and the band and the person and the audience, whoever out there gets it, is drawn into that. So I think that, you know, healing songs was something that I did, and I still think it's very valuable. But I think what I'm doing now is more kind of universal than that. It's and so, you know, you have a concert or whatever, and it can work on the level of you know, entraining people, drawing along with the energy, and yet it may not be that the performer themselves is wanting to heal. They're just wanting to perform as purely as possible.
That's gorgeous. What an answer. Do you see new generations showing up at concerts? Grandchildren and great-grandchildren, that kind of crowd?
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I, you know, round where I am in Lewis, there's a lot of art warehouse space, and there's a lot of, you know, young people, 24, 23, and even, you know, 17, that bracket as well. And some of them have decided to go off on, you know, a healing journey, spiritual journeys, new age stuff. Some of them haven't. Some of them are more just interested in finding a place where they feel that they can just let go, you know, and not be troubled. And so those all turn up, and they like the fact that the god of Hellfire, this old guy running around there and leaping up and down. And I found that, that actually that thing of the energy, because if you're playing to young kids, they're not really worried about what you're saying. They just respond direct to the energy. And I find that it works with all ages, actually. If you've got a good energy, then the kids are drawn to it. If you're full of bullshit,
music technology these days, any opinions on that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously an incredible flexibility come about by the fact that your studios are not owned by the big corporations anymore, and they can't control you, and you don't need vast amounts of money to make a good album. And that was always, much as the internet came out from, you know, a dream of certain sort of hippies on the West Coast wanting the computer to become something that everybody could use, as opposed to the East Coast big computer, which was owned by the corporation who wanted to stop everybody having access to it. Unfortunately, the other one prevailed. And I think that sort of democratization of access to information has been mirrored by an access to the way to manipulate information. You know, you've got all kinds of people able to do animation, as well as, you know, taking sound and manipulating it at source. And you know, probably, after all, looked at from one point of view, music itself is a technology. You've got a form put out. Like if you think of a car, it's a shape that someone came up with, and then all cars have to be made like that. And then someone else goes like, oh, if we alter this bit, lots of people probably like that. And the same happened with music. You know, the sonata comes out, oh, that's sort of great. So, ooh, yeah, now how about we change that a bit? And each culture has a different thing. And I think that because of the access to all kinds of information and stuff, there's going to be becoming a much more flexible idea of what a musical form should be. Maybe the idea of a 12-bar will be finally dropped. You know, I mean, the old guys never played. They played 13 bars, 17 bars, much more fluid. And then when the Europeans got hold of it, 12 bars. So, and I think, I think technology itself is changing so that the limits of what you can use as a source for governing sound and the modulation of it is melting. And so that all the disciplines, medicine, electronics, sound production, they're all coming together to where, you know, the human body will be itself able to produce. I mean, you know, there was a band in the 60s that used, I think, just electronic things attached to the body. And that was the whole of their music. And I can see that with the more subtle things that they produced electronically for monitoring the body, the idea of the, say you took all the human functions, fed them into a sound booth by taking all the frequencies and altering them until they were audible, then you could have all the bodily functions going, and as, say, like a dancer was moving, all of that would become a music of its own and have its rhythms. I mean, there's so many rhythms in the body that are not heard, but which are there, and they all work in a subtle way together. And then, of course, you'd have all the rhythms of the minds and the thoughts they were having. That won't be long before all that's up there.
That's like the good sustain of a nice stomach growl. Quick, give me an SM57. My stomach sounds great right now.
Well, of course, it will depend on your diet.
Yeah. Again, the ghee.
Yeah.
Well, Arthur, we're moving right along, and your family life. You talked a little bit about your dad, maybe your life in Texas when you went over there. Children, marriage, relationships, anything you'd like to say about your family life? Personal.
Oh, you know, I've got 2 children that I know of, and they, one of them I didn't meet till how old was he? He was about 30. And that was kind of when I got married for the second time, I decided that this time I would make sure that I was around for my son being around. So I left the music industry as such and went off to Austin and became a carpenter and house painter. And so that was a very lovely relationship. that's kind of a good thing, I think, that happens when you actually decide you want a kid, and you have one in the framework of that. Although it can also be equally good another way. But, and I go back every year to see him, my ex-wife, and now I've got a grandson there. Got two granddaughters with the one I didn't meet till he was 30. That's Julian, and he's, their granddaughter's now 20, I think, 21. Ooh. And I mean, it is for me. It's important to be constantly in contact. I'm not always, I'm not there all, but nice to have for me, that is a framework of life, and, to be still there, involved with some of my grandson's choices, and, I mean,
Do you miss anybody? And what I mean by that is if you lost anybody that you just really, your heart every now and then really misses, and one of them maybe, someone just passed in Hawkwind when you were about ready to, when we were going to talk to each other before, and Hugh Lloyd Langton, did you...
Oh, yeah.
Do you miss anybody? Is there anybody that stands out in that kind of... I know that's a personal, very personal question. You don't have to answer that, but...
there's so many of them, and they keep just popping up. Like Viv Stanshall's daughter's making a film about Viv and everything, and so, she got in contact. Of course, that brought up all my stuff with Viv, and that crossed over to Bob Calvert of Hawkwind, and it's a constant background. It's not so much missing, because what's going on now is always the kind of context, I've got, if I was going to miss people, there's people who are still alive in different countries that I'd miss for a while, and then there'd be someone else. It's all, no, I don't think, I mean, it's a good question. Depends what you mean by miss, I suppose. There's dear places in the heart, and if your life is one that mine seems to be just constantly going through all the barriers of different types of conditioning to find the heart at the bottom of it all. You go through, I went through so many different locales and scenes, from Sufi camps, monasteries, communities, nudist places, Native American nations, shamanic journeys, and all of these things. And they all have different people involved. So if I was going to miss anyone, gosh, there are the ones that stand out in all of those, and there are people that I've loved dearly and still love dearly. But, in the end, you come to at least to me, a sort of an acceptance of the fact that things come and go. People, oneself, life is like an ocean. It comes and goes. The waves come up, and then they're gone. And it's always like that. It's never stopped, and that's how it is. So, no, I don't think I miss anyone. And yes, I miss everyone.
Oh. Well, let's play apples and oranges. Are you ready for that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, apples and oranges is basic. It's just you choose one or the other, Arthur.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Organized philosophy or people's opinion?
I'll choose bullshit.
Number 2, pop or underground?
What was the first one?
I'm trying to not pop the Neumann. I need a pop filter. Pop or underground?
Oh, bloody hell. Soda for me.
That's great. Number 3, owning or renting?
Oh, fuck me. Oh, God. Renting. There you go. Yeah.
Fire? Here, this one, we know the answer, maybe. Maybe not. Fire or water?
Oh. Ooh, that's a tricky question, isn't it? I'll take steam.
The sum of all things. Vegetables or fruit?
Oh. Well, that's a damning question. Whatever you say, somebody's going to come and murder you. But I would say, avocados.
Is that the one you can't figure out which is which, right? Like tomatoes? Verse or prose?
Yeah. Well, I would say that the tuning fork.
That's great. I shouldn't even. You probably answer the same answer to this one: theater or film.
Oh, well, is there a difference? I love film, but I think, and I'll watch a lot more film. But there is something about theater. I'd say theater.
And the last two, John Coltrane or John Cage?
Oh, Coltrane.
And then here's the last one. I've asked this on probably almost 99% of all my artists. Arthur Brown or Alice Cooper?
Well, I'd have to say Screaming Jay Hawkins.
There you go. That's apples and oranges, Arthur. That's awesome.
That's a nice game.
Got two conclusions here. The first one's they're as heavy as you want them to be. This first one's kind of heavy, and then the second one is your own. This is
Okay.
It's your baby. But this one, do you think people will ever stop war and start feeding the hungry?
Oh. Well, you know, when I look around and look at the world, it's just kind of like a big picture in 4 dimensions of the human nature, the human psyche, the human, and you know, you have all these attempts in different cultures to undo some of the tendencies which put the human nature into imbalance. And, you know, some of those tendencies can be ignorance, if you want to look at the Buddhist way of looking at it, and ignorance, desire, lust, all of those things. And so, for there not to be war, there would either have to be a huge explosion and no human beings, which is one option, or there would have to be somehow a way that human beings balance their nature, and you know, all of these things that come in that try to disrupt it from its original purity. The original purity of the human psyche or the human being is, it's beyond all the dualistic things of right and wrong, creation and destruction and everything. It's a kind of mysterious depth in which none of that takes place. And so, in that place, everything is in a balance. And there's mythical projections of a time when, you know, the whole of the human race will transcend their normal everyday nature, and become something else. As to whether this is likely to happen is another question, because there's also another way of looking at it, which is that, okay, if all of that going on is kind of a cosmic theater, then you have the capacity as an individual to choose to either buy into it, or, as John Lennon said, just watch the wheels go around. You step outside it all. And that's irrespective of whether the whole of human race is going to do it. You know, you just do it if that's what you feel is necessary. And then you're not bound by the time, you're not bound by what the human race will or won't do. At the same time, you know, it's obvious that we all live together, we depend on each other, we're interdependent with everything in the universe. So, in a way, you can't escape trying to make this existence a place where the destructive capacities of human beings are not imbalanced, and you know, of course there are some theories of war, like in the tradition Gurdjieff came from. There's these sort of approaches that, oh well, you know, everything here, the earth is used as a food by the grasses and plants. The plants are used as a food by animals, and we use all of those as a food. And so the Gurdjieffian approach is, well, one question that hasn't really been asked in the West is, what are we a food for? And so their answer is, well, the moon is actually about to become an organic planet. And the way that happens is a certain energy has to come from the earth. And the way that energy is produced is either when a being perfects themselves and gets this place beyond duality through, some would say discipline or whatever way you're going to get to it. And the other is that if not enough of that is done by the human beings voluntarily, the other time at which that energy is released is on the death of human beings. And so if not enough of them perfect themselves, war will happen as a way of creating that energy that is needed by the moon. And it has nothing to do with, what humans want at all. So I think it all depends on the context you look at things in.
Yeah, well, there's no stopping the second law of thermodynamics.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, wow. All right, Arthur, this will end the interview. If you say, what would you like to close this phone call with in front of the whole internet world right now at this moment?
Oh.
I'm laughing because I'm like, it would be funny if you just hung up. I would have been,
well, that's enough, isn't it?
Right. You closed it with a laugh, though. And that is totally stereotypical Arthur Brown. Arthur, thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and I'll look forward to sometime to hearing it. All right, thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, yeah, and lovely. And do mention our new album. I forgot. We're in the studio now doing this new Crazy World album. Yeah, pretty incredible, I think.